Hi, today I will be doing an online journal again, and I'm going to focus on the novel In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. And we're going to be discussing how Truman Capote addresses the conceptual understandings of identity and culture, while also comparing it to how Marjane Satrapi addresses the conceptual understandings of identity and culture. Now, when we look at Capote and how he writes Dick and Perry, he writes it in the context of American culture, of the American dream. We see how they are portrayed as, how society portrays them as one dimensional delinquents and criminals and people who deserve the punishment that they're going to get, which is execution eventually, and they deserve it. And what Capote kind of brings in is a good examination of American culture, of how some people like Perry and Dick, they don't get the opportunities that they need, and they don't get to achieve the American dream, which is a sort of cornerstone of the American culture, or the American ethos, which is the American dream. And it's kind of exhibiting the it's I wouldn't say it's more it's we learn about culture by learning when it's not applicable, like the counterculture, kind of like seeing examples where it doesn't work out. For example, Dick wants to be an engineer, but because of his financial reasons, he can't afford to go to college, and therefore he leads into a life of delinquency and criminality, and eventually gets stuck having to kill a good family because of his inability to achieve his dreams. And same with Perry. He grew up. He wanted to become a literary part of like the intelligentsia. He wanted to be a literary intellectual, but because he was never given an opportunity to stay in school for more than like maybe like a few years or a few months, because of no like he didn't have anyone to help him through the issues that he was dealing with. He was dealing with issues. He got into fights, and no one was there to kind of help him kind of go through that, or stand by him, or advocate for him. And so he was kicked out of school, and we really see how these two were never given the American dream that the American culture kind of promises to those who work hard. And when we look at how culture is represented in Marjane Satrapi's world, in the Persepolis, and how she portrays Iran, it's a different story, because she actually portrays mainstream culture, while Capote portrays an example of how mainstream culture didn't work out for these two, Dick and Perry. So it's very interesting how they both end on kind of, they both have negative and positive aspects, and Capote's more negative than positive, but there definitely is a sense of similarity between the two. You know, they're in both cases that neither of them were kind of helped by the cultures they lived in. For example, Marjane Satrapi was definitely not helped by living in the Islamic fundamentalist state, and Dick and Perry were not helped by living in even in the American culture of rugged independence, and individualism did not help them achieve their dreams. And so we kind of see how culture, the negative aspects of a culture that is set in stone, can be. And we also see identity. Uh, Dick and Perry sort of have this. I have Dick Perry especially. He identifies as someone who is. He doesn't identify as like more of a criminal kind of person. He sees himself as more of a soft-hearted and like like a person who would have been good, and that's how actually Capote portrays him as well, and that's what Dick sees him, not Dick, but Perry sees himself. Perry sees himself as like even kind of like an intellectual, and that's in direct contrast to his actual actions, going and murdering the people, the family in Holcomb County. It's very different from how he portrays himself as a kind-hearted person. Dick, on the other hand, fully accepts his actions and kind of makes his identity kind of on that. He doesn't have a kind of fantasy identity. He accepts the identity that his actions have led him to cause, and so he's okay with that. And so it really comes to say, like, what is identity and why is it important to people? For Perry, his identity as an intellectual is what actually keeps him going, and he, it's what keeps him dreaming about uh, going forward. And for Dick, his identity kind of keeps him from doing anything that isn't normal. For example, he says, "I'm a normal," frequently through the text. So we see how his identity kind of constrains him to specific behaviors, while Perry's identity is quite misguided and fantastical in a sense, how misguided it is. And so we really get to study how these identities form in Capote's True Blood. And and therefore it's very interesting. And so, I mean, that's all I have for today. Yeah, until next time.